A man inherits his father's rusty old toolbox. As he opens each drawer, he recalls moments from childhood, some warm, some difficult, realizing how much was left unspoken between them. It had been 6 months since the funeral. The house was quiet, too quiet. Michael walked into the garage of his childhood home, the smell of dust and old oil filling the air. Sunlight poured through the small window, landing on a rusty red toolbox that sat in the corner. It hadn't moved in years. His father's toolbox. Michael stood still for a moment, staring at it. It looked smaller than he remembered. As a child, it had seemed like a treasure chest, heavy, mysterious, full of secrets. He slowly walked over and ran his fingers along the top. The metal was cold. The paint was chipped. A few cobwebs stretched across the handle. He knelt down and opened the lid with a loud creak. Inside were tools worn by time: hammers, screwdrivers, pliers, a measuring tape, all neatly arranged. His father had always kept things in order. That was his way: quiet, strong, and precise. Michael sighed. There was so much he had wanted to say to his dad, so much he had never understood, so much left unspoken. The toolbox had drawers. As he opened the first one, a memory surfaced. He was 6 years old. His dad was fixing a broken chair in the living room. Michael wanted to help. He remembered picking up a screwdriver, holding it proudly, but his dad had taken it gently from his hand and said, "Not yet, one day." Michael had felt a mix of pride and disappointment. Back then, he didn't understand. Now he did. His father wasn't pushing him away. He was trying to keep him safe. In the second drawer, he found a box of old nails and bolts. Some were shiny, but most were dull with age. Another memory came to life. He was 10. The two of them had built a birdhouse in the backyard. Michael had hammered in the nails with too much force, splitting the wood. He had felt angry, embarrassed, but his dad had only smiled and said, "Mistakes teach us more than success." That line stayed with him, though he hadn't heard it in years. His father wasn't a man of many words, but when he spoke, it mattered. The third drawer held a small, faded photo. Michael's hands trembled as he picked it up. It was him and his father, standing beside an old car. He was a teenager then, tall and full of questions. The car had broken down, and they had spent all afternoon trying to fix it. Michael had been frustrated, ready to give up. His father had just kept working, calm and steady. In the end, they hadn't fixed the car, but they had shared something more important: time. Looking at the photo now, Michael realized that was his father's way of showing love. Not through hugs or words, but through shared moments and quiet presence. The next drawer was stiff. He tugged at it until it opened with a jerk. Inside was an old pocket knife. Michael recognized it instantly. When he was 12, he had begged his dad to let him have it. But his father had said, "When you're ready." Michael had thought he was ready then. But now, Holding it in his hand, he truly understood the weight of that small object. It wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of trust, of responsibility, of growing up. As he explored each drawer, more memories returned. Some made him smile. Some made his chest ache. There were times he had felt his father was too distant, too strict. There were arguments they had never resolved, words they had never exchanged. But there were also times of silent understanding, like the night before Michael left for college. His dad hadn't said much, just handed him a flashlight and said, "For the road ahead." It was simple, but full of meaning. Michael sat back and looked around the garage. It was filled with old things, his father's workbench, a few shelves, a dusty radio. Everything was still, as if waiting for someone to remember. And here he was, remembering it all. He opened the final drawer. Inside was a small, folded note. His breath caught in his throat. He hadn't expected this. The paper was yellow with age, the handwriting rough but familiar. It read, "To my son. If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there beside you, but I hope you know I was always proud of you. I may not have said it often, but I watched you grow into a man with strength and heart. This toolbox isn't worth much in money, but it holds something more: lessons, time, love. Use it well. Dad." Tears welled up in Michael's eyes. He had always wondered what his father thought of him. They had never really talked about feelings. They had built things, fixed things, argued over small stuff, but rarely talked. And yet here it was, written clearly. His father's quiet love, finally spoken. Michael sat in the garage for a long time, holding the note. The toolbox lay open in front of him like a book full of memories. He thought of all the people who never get the chance to understand their parents, all the things left unsaid, and he realized something important. It's never too late to listen. Even if the person is gone, their voice can still be heard in the things they leave behind. That day, Michael didn't just inherit a toolbox, he inherited a legacy, one of patience, effort, mistakes, and care. He thought about his own son, who was now 8, always curious, always asking questions. Michael smiled. Maybe it was time to pass something on. Later that week, Michael brought the toolbox home. He cleaned it, drawer by drawer. He polished the tools, replaced the broken latch, and oiled the hinges. Then he placed it on a shelf in his own garage. His son came in, eyes wide with interest. "What's that?" the boy asked. Michael looked at the old toolbox and smiled. "That," he said, "was your grandfather's. And one day it might be yours." His son touched the handle gently, as if it were something magical. And in that moment, Michael felt the past and future connect, like the turning of a screw, firm and steady. Some stories aren't told with words. They're told with old tools, quiet afternoons, and memories that return with the smell of dust and oil. Michael had finally heard his father's story, and now he was ready to tell his own.